Hello everybody, welcome to Planet FPL, the world where everything revolves around fantasy Premier League. My name's Suj.
And my name is James.
We're recording on Monday after no football because, sadly, we lost the Queen last Thursday, James.
Yeah, sad news, obviously, and thoughts go out to everybody who's obviously affected by the loss of Queen Elizabeth II. It feels kind of awkward to even know where to start and begin with this.
Yeah. I mean, look, it was kind of becoming inevitable as the afternoon rolled out, right?
On Thursday,
Quite often when these things happen, it's happened a few hours before and then we're just kind of waiting for it to be confirmed. And that's how it felt when I got home from work at like 6. I was just sitting with the kids and even talking to my wife, I was like, she's unfortunately probably died and we're just waiting for it to be confirmed, and it was. A whole weekend of stories and history and whatever else. And I think regardless of whatever you think politically or what have you, at the end of the day, it's someone who has lived to the ripe old age of 96, 70 years in the limelight and done an awful lot of good. I just think that, it's a sad day.
Yeah,
it was a sad day and
Agreed.
Is a sad time.
I think for nearly everybody listening to this podcast, there will be some who are in their 70s, etc., and older. But for the majority of us, we've never known anything different, and it's one of them. It almost feels like one of them things you take for granted. Exactly what you said. Unfortunately, that everyone's going to pass at some stage, but it still felt a little bit abnormal as the day was unfolding on Thursday. It felt a little bit surreal.
Because she worked Monday, Tuesday, having meetings, meeting Liz Truss, doing stuff. And I suppose if there's a way to go, it's like as quietly in your sleep and being active all the way up to it. But yeah, it just did feel surreal because she still was active and still kind of carrying out as much of her duties as she could. So, yeah.
We obviously got no games to review from the weekend, but there is plenty to discuss. We'll talk about the fact that the games were postponed. We'll talk about, and it's worth timestamping, we're currently about 10 a.m. UK time on Monday morning. Discuss where we're currently at in terms of our knowledge for the fixtures, both in terms of midweek, European games, EFL games, and obviously what the end game, I guess, for FPL managers is in terms of what's happening in Gameweek 8. I'm essentially on Wildcard at the moment, although I haven't activated the button. We'll talk about that. We'll get Suj's view because he's not going to be on that, I don't think. So we'll talk about a couple of alternative views. We'll talk about, we've got a load of questions coming, which we'll cover off anything that we haven't kind of spoken about in conversation. I'm going to talk about when these games might get played. There are a few alternative options, and what it also means, obviously, if Game Week 8 was to be completely postponed as well. Firstly, your thoughts on the fact that the games were postponed, the weekend gone?
That's I'm neither here nor there. I can understand why the games were postponed and people want to and what have you, and I can understand the argument when people say bring people together and it would have been a show of support. I don't know to what extent. Some people are saying that fans would have behaved like pricks in certain scenarios. I don't have enough context or understanding of why certain fan groups would have. All I can go off is, look, at the end, we were forced to play our game on Thursday. I say forced, like you're talking about 2 hours notice and 3,000 fans have come over from Romania and everything's been done. I don't disagree, fine. Okay, look, at this point, the game's going ahead. But fans will sing the national anthem and come together and moment silence. It was carried out. It was fine. So I can see the argument of bring people together and trust that the vast majority of fans will be respectful, sing the national anthem, moment silence, whatever it may be. And I can also see the argument that, look, this is such a monumental, historic time that perhaps not continuing with the games is also valid. So I don't have an opinion on one way or the other. I can see I'm really, if they'd have carried on with the games, I wouldn't have been like, what the hell are you doing? And the fact that they've cancelled all the games, I'm not, what the hell are you doing? I'm really, both ways I can see it, because different people are different. The only thing I don't have the knowledge and understanding of, and I've seen a few people tweet like that certain fan groups might not have behaved impeccably. I wouldn't have wanted that. I wouldn't have wanted that. You've seen it on Twitter or whatever else, videos of all sorts of chants and stuff. You don't want that. So if it was a case of avoiding that, then fine, cancel the games.
But from that perspective, that's going to come around again, isn't it?
Yeah.
So
it's not done.
Exactly. At some point, whether it's going to be minute silence the weekend gone or the midweek games or next weekend, it's coming at some point, isn't it? Would you let certain fan groups never host a home game of football
exactly.
again? It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
So I think from that perspective, you've got to get that over and done with at some point. I understand the sensitivity of it being very close to, obviously, the passing of the Queen. It sounds like reports this morning are suggesting that from the Premier League were expecting, I've heard about this London Bridge kind of guidelines, this plan that's been in place from the government for, 20, 30 years or whatever, Code London Bridge, where the legislation in that was believed was going to be, right, when this happens, there is no sport.
Mm-hmm.
So it seems like the Premier League were expecting the government to postpone the football for them. The government then obviously give them the decision to say, well, it's up to you. And there was a lot of anger obviously caused by the fact that rugby continued, cricket continued, a couple of other sports.
Had the test match had 1 day off out of 5, and they'd lost 1 day anyway. Yeah. Which is bizarre because it's like taking 15 minutes out of a chunk of game of football. But the game's actually going to finish.
It rained all day. If it rains all day in a 5-day test match,
anyway.
Exactly. Yeah. The difference is, it sounds like the Premier League from that point getting what sounds like unexpected news of it's up to you, play if you want, and not being able to be in touch with kind of the 10 host Premier League clubs this weekend and say, what's your police situation, yada, yada. Sounds like they had an hour to make a decision for whatever reason. I don't know why, but that's what's being reported this morning. And I think they took the decision without the right information to step away, I think. Which they've obviously come in for a lot of criticism, but it's worth saying, those who are sitting there going, well, cricket continued, rugby continued. Unfortunately, and this isn't relevant to fan groups and possible dismissiveness of minute silence, etc. Just forget that. Outside the grounds, football needs policing in a very different way to cricket and rugby.
Yep.
Unfortunately. Yes. That's on us. It's on us as football fans. Mm-hmm. It's on the 1% of people, unfortunately. We cannot have football matches in this country between two clubs, whether they're Premier League clubs, League Two clubs, doesn't matter, without police presence.
Yep.
We can't have it. So you could have, who are England playing in the cricket?
South Africa.
You can, in theory, have that with you will still need to have police, of course, but a limited number.
Yeah.
Rugby league matches. When do you ever have about 2 sets of rugby league fans?
Doesn't happen.
Exactly.
Union league or whatever.
So unfortunately, it's a football problem. It's a football problem. And it's part of the problem coming into this week. So a lot of people saying, well, the games have got to go ahead, etc. So the issue is around policing numbers, stewarding numbers, and what the availability is going to be, because obviously the run-up to what's happening in London next Monday, which will be the funeral, huge police presence, probably going to be the biggest operation ever seen in this country, essentially, right? They're going to be drafting in police from all around the country. It's not just going to be all London police units, etc. Yep. So where we're at currently is football is restarting in this country today. In non-league football, there's like FA Trophy games happening today. Obviously, this midweek, we've got EFL restarting, so my anticipation is all the championship fixtures will go ahead this midweek, it looks like. We've obviously got European games. So it looks like the European fixtures are going to go ahead. There is, depending on where you read, there is still a small element of doubt on Arsenal and PSV Eindhoven on Thursday night at the Emirates, which that makes you think, oh, okay, that's a potential. If Thursday night's going to be a problem, then the weekend's possibly going to be a problem. But there are
you're away. We're away this week in Europe, which kind of helps.
It's fine.
Chelsea are away or home?
Chelsea are at home on Wednesday night. I think the difference with that is Dutch fans will bring a large presence. Whether it's PSV, Feyenoord, Ajax, always bring decent large numbers. Obviously, Liverpool got Ajax at home on, I think it's tomorrow night, Tuesday night. Thursday night, you've got a large presence of overseas people coming into London for a football match. There will be 3,000 PSV Eindhoven fans, I would have thought, at the Emirates, for example. That is going to need a decent-sized police operation. We saw last week scuffles at White Hart Lane with Tottenham and Marseille fans, for example. Police will need to have a decent-sized presence at that football match. There is no doubt about it. The rest of the European games seem like they'll go ahead. We have seen Rangers and Napoli move from tomorrow night to Wednesday night. Now, that's partly because the Queen is obviously in Scotland at the moment. She's been moved to Edinburgh on Tuesday night. So there's a large amount of police presence that needs to be involved in that in Scotland on Tuesday. So they've moved the game to the Wednesday, and they're saying no away fans. No away fans allowed at all from Napoli at Ibrox. It means that when they replay each other, there's going to be no Rangers fans in Naples either. But it's believed that making that decision of moving it to the Wednesday and not having away fans there means that they can reduce the police presence to a tenth of what it would have been for that fixture. So you're freeing up 90% of the capacity of the police, right?
Understood.
Whether we could look at that sort of thing happening in the Premier League, I don't know. I guess in theory, if you said, right, no Liverpool fans can go to Stamford Bridge on Sunday as an example, because it's high profile in London on Sunday afternoon, could you reduce the police presence massively at that fixture? Well, the answer is yes.
Yeah.
But that, in the spirit of competition, that doesn't feel quite right. And we have to factor in, and this was a problem for a lot of people at the weekend, including myself. I was meant to go to Manchester City on Saturday as an away fan, as a Tottenham fan. I was very lucky, actually, in the sense that my original train, because the London to Manchester line is so screwed at the moment, had already been moved. I was entitled to a full cancellation. And I was getting the train back, so I didn't have hotel problems. I saw Premier Inn were denying people refunds on hotels and such scandalous stuff. So we have to factor in away fans, and this is why we need quick decisions on this in terms of organisation. The idea of one suggestion that's been floated about for the weekend is to reverse fixtures. So, for example, Chelsea play at Anfield instead. That doesn't work because Everton are playing at home to West Ham on a Sunday.
Yeah.
You can't just go, we'll move Everton West Ham to the Saturday. We can't do that because West Ham play in Europe on the Thursday. We'll move Liverpool Chelsea to the Saturday. This stuff doesn't... When you're putting it on the telly then. Leicester Tottenham, arguably, there is a case to say it possibly could be reversed. I don't think that's awful. That said, I've looked at train prices from King's Cross to Leicester, and I can tell you if it is reversed, I'll be watching it at the pub. Because the train prices would be ridiculous.
As much as you say no away fans, you know they'll get in as well. Like, if Liverpool fans going to want to watch at Chelsea, some will find tickets in the home end and what have you. And
you still could massively reduce the police presence.
If you
did it, you would have to take the stance that when Chelsea then play at Liverpool later in the season, that Chelsea didn't have any away fans either. And I don't think that's not the spectacle we want.
I'd rather they cancel the games than that.
I'd rather they cancel the games too.
Yeah. So when do we think we'll know? Today?
I hope so.
I mean, we kind of sort of need to.
Yeah, well, we need to know soon. People need to obviously plan their lives and stuff. So I think that there's a couple of different things that can happen at the weekend. So one is all the games go ahead. Is a possibility. That, to me, right now seems unlikely. But it is possible. The general word from the Met Police to the clubs at the moment is, we'll do it. But some need bigger operations than others. So I'll give you an example. So there's an assumption on the London games this weekend. So you've got Tottenham Leicester Saturday night. You've got Brentford Arsenal Sunday. Chelsea Liverpool Sunday. You don't need the police presence at Brentford that you need at Chelsea. Mm-hmm. So you can say, big club, Arsenal's playing at Brentford. But only holds 17,000.
Yep.
It's actually not hugely different to policing, say, a championship match. There are championship matches happening in London at the weekend as well. I think Millwall, QPR, I think Leyton Orient are at home and one team in League One as well. So Brentford and Arsenal actually, despite it being a London derby, if you will, wouldn't be a big operation. Tottenham, the sheer number of people against Leicester would be, and actually there is a little bit of needle between the two clubs because of what happened in the title race 5-6 years ago. Chelsea Liverpool would need a big operation, no doubt about it. So one thought is we could lose the London games only. We've obviously already lost Brighton Crystal Palace. So that's already been called off last week due to train strikes. Yeah. The irony with that is because of the Queen's death, the strikes are off. No, so in theory could have happened, but apparently Crystal Palace had pushed potentially for the fixture to be back on and have just been told no. And I can imagine it from Brighton's perspective to cancel all the stewarding, all the catering, offering whatever, all the police presence for that. Off and that would have been Brighton Palace would have been treated like a London game because the police presence they hate each other.
They have no manager.
And they have no manager, probably not in a rush.
Do I want to play the game while I've got no manager?
They're
no,
probably
thank
not
you
in a
very
rush.
much, please. Let's wait until we can get someone in.
I don't blame them for that, to be totally honest. We've also got, obviously, in the Northwest on Sunday, Manchester United against Leeds, which will obviously need a serious police presence as well. And in that sort of case, this is where it's interesting. So in the case of Manchester United versus Leeds as a very high security game anyway, they would probably have police forces drafted in from outside Manchester.
Yep.
Now, a lot of these are going to be drafted from outside Manchester to go down to London.
Mm-hmm.
So Manchester United and Leeds wouldn't be a certainty on Sunday. I'd say Everton and West Ham will need a decent-sized police presence even on Sunday afternoon in Merseyside. So I'd say all of the Sunday games are potentially a danger. Tottenham and Leicester on Saturday night is a danger. I would see no reason currently why Villa, Southampton and Forest Fulham can't happen on Friday night. But again, dependent on potential police numbers needed at those venues. Wolves, Man City, Saturday lunchtime. Newcastle, Bournemouth is the only current 3 p.m. Saturday. We could have anything between 9 fixtures and none. I suspect that particularly Chelsea-Liverpool, I find it difficult to foresee that game happening.
Yep.
The others are going to be down to what's required. So, I mean, there's nothing to say that you can't have a police presence at Tottenham, Leicester on Saturday. These people can work Saturday and Monday. One of the reasons you could argue in terms of having the game off is they may have just told a lot of the police forces who were due to operate these games, say, you need to take some time off now because your next week's going to be pretty busy. So at the moment, we're in a little bit of limbo in terms of where we stand for this weekend. From an FPL perspective, it's not stopped me doing what I want to do. So let's work on the potential basis that we had the 3 London fixtures called off: Tottenham, Leicester, Brentford, Arsenal, and Chelsea, Liverpool. That would leave me going into this weekend with Cancelo, De Bruyne, Haaland, Andreas Pereira.
4 players.
That's all I'd have.
Is that after you've made your transfers with wildcarding? Or that's pre-transfers?
What I'd have had going into this week, I'd have had 4 players available, just losing those 3 fixtures,
right.
Or 4, including Brighton Palace, as I have Sanchez. I wouldn't even have Danny Ward in goal if Tottenham and Leicester was off. Not that anybody particularly wants to look at that anyway. 4 players. And I was set on wildcarding going into this week anyway, without Liverpool players wanting to take them on, because I think if you're going to, with the ownership numbers of some of these players, the fixture run is the suggestion now. I want to take on Arsenal players. Jesus and Martinelli are the 2 I have. The ownership is big. Martinelli, as I've discussed previously, is a far more difficult sell than Jesus. So my intention was to come off all of Liverpool and Arsenal anyway. They might not have a fixture. I've got no Tottenham. Bless you, Suj.
Excuse me.
Whereas if Tottenham was on against Leicester, you could say, well, I definitely want to get Perisic back in, for example. But there are alternatives. Say, do I want to look at Chelsea players at home to Liverpool this weekend? Not necessarily. So I was looking at backing heavily against, ironically, the Brentford-Arsenal game and the Chelsea-Liverpool game anyway. And obviously having lost Sanchez from Brighton Palace, for me, I'm in the same situation. Now, the concern for myself would be, what happens, James, if you get in a situation where, say, only the 2 Friday night games go ahead? Well, to be honest, if we only have Villa, Southampton and Nottingham Forest, Fulham go ahead as those 2 games, I think I would wildcard a team to set up for Gameweek 9, and whatever I've got, and I'll captain Mitrovic.
That's it.
And if I've got 3 or 4 players, I could say, right, I'm going to go Leon Bailey, for example. I'm definitely going to keep Andreas Pereira. I might go, do you know what? I'll go Nico Williams rather than Emerson, for example. So I've got a little bit more coverage. I might decide to go, I'll go James Ward-Prowse as a sitter in there for the moment. But I wouldn't be going, I wouldn't free hit into that.
No.
Now, if Newcastle and Bournemouth is on and Wolves and Man City's on, that's different. But then in that case, I'm probably going to be wildcarding into treble City, treble Newcastle anyway. That's 6. I'll have a couple of Fulham, 8. Can add in Bailey, same thing. I think I'd probably just go with 8 or 9 on the wild card and just crack on as normal, to be honest, rather than free hit. So where I'm at the moment is I'm on a -12 currently. I won't be once the weekend comes round. I'm obviously trying to nick a little bit of price value at the moment. Once we got confirmation of what's happening at the weekend, come Wednesday, Thursday, is going to be a huge number of transfers. There's obviously not many happening at the moment. The only reason I haven't activated the wildcard yet is just in case the fixtures map out in a certain way where I go, actually, this is going to be right to free hit rather than wildcard. But I'm 99%
it's one or the other for you. I mean, you're not going to sit there and let a -12
and
play out.
It's just a case of whether I'm setting up for 8 or whether I'm setting up for 9. And if we're short of fixtures and I have to wildcard because the wildcard team that I want to get to is right and only has 8-9 players this week, that's what I'm going to go with.
Right.
That's the right decision for me. Now, that's not the right decision for everybody, because I've seen plenty of opinions over the weekend saying, you can't wildcard into this with the uncertainty. My intention was to play these fixtures anyway, and even without them, it would still be right for me to wildcard into 9. So last week, we've obviously had people wildcarding into 7. I've obviously had it rolled over where they're still on wildcard. If every game gets postponed again, why are they not going to do that again?
Yep.
And even if they didn't, fine, every game's off. Okay, I've set it up for 9.
Yeah.
Set it up for 9. That's where I'm at the moment. How do you feel about, there's plenty of people who have wildcarded early, who have obviously been really unfortunate here. What I'd say is, they probably have a little bit more value in their squads than those who haven't wildcarded, because presumably they've increased that in value. But they're looking at a bad situation going into this week. What do you think about those who are calling for a free hit?
An extra one?
Yeah.
No.
Agreed.
I just think, unfortunately, sometimes you get the rub of the green and sometimes you don't. This is one where you haven't. And it's not something that FPL could have planned for. So, yeah, I don't think so. I don't think it's possible to do anything about it.
I don't see how they can do that, because I don't see how that... You have got people on wildcard. So what's it for those who are on wildcard to have the additional free hit and get people out of it? Unfortunately, it's part of the game. It's very, very unfortunate. It's very unlucky. That's the way it's gone. Now, there will be a lot of people thinking, well, I might have to use my 1 free hit this week, subject to how many games we have. And you can. Of course you can, particularly if we only have, say, the 4 fixtures I mentioned, the 2 Friday night and the 2 on Saturday. If you've got no Newcastle, no Fulham, no Villa, there is a case to say, yeah, okay, add that to Manchester City assets. Perhaps you've only got Haaland, for example, Man City. Then yes, it could be the right play to free hit. I'd just like to remind people that at the moment, unless we get struck by serious COVID again over winter, we have 1 free hit this season. And it is going to be difficult to manoeuvre the kind of game week 28 to game week 34 period next season. I just want to offer this for a reminder for those who might be thinking of free hitting this week. Game week 28 is the FA Cup quarterfinals this season. We will obviously have a blank game week for games that are postponed for the FA Cup quarterfinals. That is likely to be followed immediately after an international break by a double game week in game week 29. We will then have further blanks in game week 32 for the FA Cup semi-finals, and then game week 34 is also likely to be a double game week. So you are going through a period there. It's going to be blank, double, blank, double. Manoeuvring that without a free hit over that period is going to be quite tricky. So I think the consciousness will be, oh my God, I've got massive problems, I need to free hit. And for some people, that will be the right decision this week, of course. I think if you're down to sort of 3 players or so, and the way the fixtures land this week, if that's where you're at, there is every justification to say free hit. Every justification to do that. But I think for those who probably be sitting on sort of 6, 7, or can get to that sort of number, say we've only got 4 fixtures, I think I'd ride that. I think the free hit will be more useful for you later in the season.
I'm just looking at my team because I hadn't really looked at it with any sort of foresight. I'm the type of person that I want the information. When the information can be so varied, I want the information, then I can make a plan. Like if it was just 2 options, I'd look at A and B. But when it's like multiple options, I don't like the look of it. But I think I could come out of it okay because I'm sitting on 3 City, Cancelo, De Bruyne, Haaland, Pereira, Leon Bailey.
Yep.
If the Everton game on the weekend went ahead, then I've got Patterson as well. So that's already 6.
Yep.
Nico Williams,
7.
Yep. And my 2 free transfers that I'd planned for this week prior to all of this was getting Fabianski in goal.
Yep.
Which if the Everton game went
ahead... You got
ahead,
2 frees as
2,
well.
yeah. And Mitrovic in for Cameron Archer.
Perfect.
So suddenly I'm up to 8-9 players. If the Everton-West Ham game wasn't to go ahead, I might swap Fabianski for Pope and be done with it. And he's my keeper for the next 4 or 5 weeks. So I'm not particularly seeing a scenario where I'll be less than 6 or 7 players at least, and then I just go through with it, and it's not a problem for me. And obviously Haaland will be the most powerful captain. Be done with it.
Yes, Haaland will be, I'm sure, most captain this week anyway. And that's it. I think it's really important to kind of establish that if you're in doubt in your mind at the moment, is just looking at that and listening to me and Suj at the moment and saying, look, we've got different ways we want to treat this. For you, that's right. You're going to get to 8, 9 or so. I mean, take a hit, get another player, right?
Yeah, fine. I mean, what I don't want to do is break the long-term strategy for the sort of short-term for one player. Unless I'm then taking a hit for a Villa player, Bournemouth player, a Fulham player. I don't mind taking a hit if I think there's a little bit of power.
You got no Newcastle, have you?
No.
So, I mean, you mentioned Fabianski, other options, Pope,
Trippier. I don't need to take a hit for
Alexander
that.
Isak, St. Maximin if he's past fit. They've got Bournemouth at home. You might determine that a Newcastle player is worth that extra transfer.
Yeah, potentially. And I can make that call. Like the number of variations, permutations, combinations for me is very low, so it's cool. I don't have to worry about a chip. But yeah, so I think they're going to try and get as many games as possible.
You don't want to. The key message: you don't want to deconstruct your team in the way that I do.
Nah.
That's what's important.
Yeah.
So you don't want a wild card.
Nah.
I wanted to wild card anyway.
Yeah.
That's
and
important.
Understandably, you're taking a very different strategy from me, which is come off the big guns in Liverpool and Arsenal, and try and find some ways to make some ground. Whereas my strategy so far has been stick with the big 5, not even Man United, plus 1 or 2 others, and it's fared fine so far. And I don't see any reason why those guys are not going to continue to do okay. Although I'm coming off bit by bit, so losing Kulusevski and having Mitrovic and bit by bit, and then I might lose Diaz and come off to someone else. I think.
Yeah, but then if Tottenham Leicester's on, you might not want to lose Kulusevski.
He's already gone though. He was my free transfer in game week 7 that I would have lost, and he went to Leon Bailey, which is fine because Bailey might play.
Good fixture this
so
week.
Then it would be okay. For
Bailey
me.
could well be on my wild card.
Yeah. So it's at the moment. Options are open, but none of them are disastrous for me. I do understand that some people are in much more difficult situations, but I don't think it's worth adding a free hit for everybody just for this week.
No, I want to run through a kind of wildcard draft.
You know what? The only reason I think if there was only one game on this weekend, but then it's kind of sort of.
If there's one game, say there's only Forest Fulham this week, everyone captains Mitrovic, and that's the end of it, and don't worry about nothing else.
Yeah. Because if we were to free hit from one game, we're all picking the same fucking team.
If only Wolves and Man City's on this weekend, we'll captain Haaland, try and get treble City. That's it. We can do. I can't get treble Wolves in, so I got 6 players. You're not, are you? No. You just go with the 3 City players.
Yeah.
I just want to kind of run through where I'm at in terms of potential wildcard draft to show that actually how I would be. Even this is irrespective of fixtures being on or off. So Pope and Ward as goalkeepers, keep Ward as the dodgy. To be honest, there's every chance, by the way, that if this week was completely postponed and we're going straight into 9, I would arguably maybe go Ward and Everson. As mad as that sounds, but I know people are looking to come off it. Defensively, Cancelo, Perisic. So obviously if Tottenham didn't play, fine, bench Perisic or move him to someone else. Kieran Trippier, Newcastle. Emerson at West Ham. Decent value, 4.0.
Scored last week.
Joachim Anderson, Crystal Palace. No fixture this week. Brilliant run of fixtures from game week 10. Wilfried Zaha. Jared Bowen, West Ham. Harvey Barnes, Leicester. You can tell I'm going differential with this. KDB, City. Andreas Pereira, Fulham. Isak, Mitrovic, Haaland. And that's whether fixtures are on or off or even partially off. That's the sort of group of players that I'm looking at. Now, it might be, for example, that if I have to go straight into 9, for example, and then Arsenal got home game against Tottenham, I might find, ironically, Martinelli a harder sell. So he might stay in, for example. Do I desperately want Harvey Barnes away to Tottenham? No, but I would like some Leicester coverage. Structure-wise, this is roughly what I'm looking at. And obviously with that, I'd be benching Perisic, Anderson and Zaha this week. Not benching Liverpool assets, Chelsea assets. I'd be benching a Tottenham player and 2 Crystal Palace players if their Crystal Palace obviously is off. That's roughly where I'm looking to set up. is to have 11 and a couple of transfers that are for future moves, kind of sitting on the bench, basically. Before we do some questions, Suj, I just want to cover off when game week 7 might be rearranged. So let's say game week 8 bar Brighton Crystal Palace. Let's say it all goes ahead, hypothetically, and we've got the whole of game week 7 to rearrange. When can it be played? So some of you may have seen the post that I put out on Friday when we said we didn't think it was right to do content on the day, that I didn't think there was any chance of it being before the World Cup. Having had another look, I don't think it's impossible. So on the face of it, there is no free available midweek to put all of the fixtures at the same time currently. And I think because we've had a whole 10 games postponed together, it would make sense to me, the Premier League doesn't always do sense, that all 10 games would be rearranged to the same time period. Would that be fair, Suj?
Yeah.
Keep it as a block midweek.
I'd rather it was just another full set of 10 fixtures, yeah.
What it also means, of course, is if that was to happen, we are highly likely to have double game week with all 20 teams doubling. If you're thinking of using your bench boost this week, just, hey, there's 6 fixtures, let me bench boost.
I mean, official FPL will tweet 402 managers have used their bench boost this week, because it will happen.
Because they've let game week 7 run by and pass. If all 10 fixtures are moved to the same midweek at some point, all 20 teams can have a double game week. You don't even need to plan for your bench boost this year.
No, yeah, you're right.
Or, yeah.
Now, I didn't know I didn't know if FPL would try and then make it 39 game weeks by making it its own game week, by changing the deadlines.
They're not going to do it.
Nah, fuck it. I'm
99% certain of that.
Run it as a double game week.
Wherever game week 7, if all the fixtures move together, all 20 teams will double.
Yeah, fine.
As your bench boost or your triple captain, so you don't even have to think about it too much. Wherever it drops, it drops. There is one possibility, I think, prior to the World Cup, though, thinking about it. So, particularly if we lose game week 8, then we've got a real problem in terms of then trying to rearrange 2 whole sets of fixtures. And what we had a couple of years ago, obviously, with the big COVID problems, and I think we had it last year as well, we had no 4th round replays in the FA Cup and stuff. So currently you've got 2 midweeks set aside for FA Cup 3rd round replays and FA Cup 4th round replays, where you could say, look, sorry, we're not doing the replays, we need to make extra period in the schedule. What's interesting is that the midweek for the FA Cup 4th round replays follows directly after the reverse fixtures. So the reverse of game week 7 is game week 22. So would the Premier League want each team playing each other twice over 3 or 4 days?
Again, no.
That's a bit shit, isn't it? And game week 8 is game week 23 reversed immediately afterwards. And that's probably the most obvious one, is to say, well, we're not going to do FA Cup 4th round replays. But then that's not a good look. We do have, as I covered in Season 6, Episode 4, when we talked about chip strategy in pre-season, we have free, as in available midweeks this season, when normally we'd only have 2. So game week 29, 34 and 37 are completely blank. And we don't need all of them.
No.
Essentially, one is spare.
Yep.
So I think if game week 8 goes ahead, it's not impractical to suggest that all of game week 7 goes into game week 29, for example, and you still use 34 and 37. And if a Champions League team gets to the League Cup final, you can use one of those where the Champions League last 16 split over 4 weeks. You could still use one of those midweeks. So there's still period in the schedule. Another option, of course, is to move Carabao Cup semi-finals to 1 leg rather than 2 legs. They're blanked out. Now, of course, we could, in theory, have 7, 8 of the fixtures go into one of those midweeks, and we still have the Carabao Cup semi-finals with the other teams.
Still a big double it will be.
Could be, yeah. But obviously reducing it to a 1-leg semi-final, which nobody likes the idea that they're 2 legs anymore, particularly anyway, would give us another whole week in the calendar. Those semi-finals are due to be played, I will tell you, both after game week 21. Because after game week 21, you've got League Cup semis 1st round, FA Cup 4th round, League Cup semis 2nd leg. So moving that to 1 leg could open up a whole week. But it got me thinking, if they were to do that, rather than again, because following that's game week 22, so you'd have the reverse problem again. So you'd have the game week 7 fixtures in the midweek before all the teams play each other again. It just doesn't feel comfortable moving these fixtures into the January period when the reverse fixtures are happening. It got me thinking that they could do that, reduce it to a one-leg semi-final and push everything back. And what I mean by that is move the quarterfinals to semi-final leg 1, have semi-final leg 2 as a one-off semi-final, move the 4th round to the quarter-final date. And what that would free up is after game week 15. Not the 4th round, sorry. 4th round to the quarterfinals and the 3rd round to the 4th round. That would free up game week 15 as a potential. So currently the draw's been made. You've got Carabao Cup 3rd round. Every Premier League team except Fulham is playing in that midweek between game week 15 and 16. Could they reduce the League Cup semi-finals to one leg, push every round back one, and it opens up the midweek of game week 15?
I don't see why they would, because they don't need to. Like if it was COVID like last year, where there was a shitload of games,
especially if we lose all of game week 8, something will have to give with them cup days.
I mean, what we saw last time is they kept kicking it forward, and the problem seemed to get worse and worse until they just resolved it. I don't think they will want to change the rules of the competition now that it's already started. I can't see them wanting to do that, and I don't think they're at desperation stage yet. And there's also what other risks? I mean, barring another variant and shit really kicking off, which I don't see happening as well.
We didn't see it happening this time last year.
I don't think that there will be... No, it's fair. I don't think they will want to change the rules of a competition once it's started. I think that's a very low probability outcome.
I think if game week 8 goes ahead as in the majority, then I think the most likely at the moment is it'll end up being around about game week 29. And if something has to give on top for cup dates, then it will. That's my take. But it could be that game week 15 is a possibility. Another possibility is game week 17, which is obviously afterwards, where, if you remember, Suj, we've only got 2 rounds of fixtures over the Christmas period. Normally we have like Boxing Day, New Year's Day and something in the middle. Mm-hmm. We haven't got anything in the middle this year. But if it comes to it, could they add an extra load of Christmas fixtures played on the Wednesday and the Thursday in between 17 and 18? I think that's a possibility, as I wrote about last week. And that would mean we're all going unlimited straight into bench boost.
Yep. Don't
worry about it too much. I think 15 is unlikely, but a small possibility. In which case, in any way, it would be all 20 teams. There's nothing to plan for. If it just falls that way, you just bench boost, don't you?
Yeah.
Surely.
Keep it simple.
Yep. That's it.
Well, we shall see how the week rolls out. Of course, we've got content planned for the rest of the week, and depending on how things drop, we can, of course, come back and revisit it, because there are a lot of questions around free hits and wildcards and which fixtures will be on and won't be on. My opinion is that it'll be hours, and if not hours, then a day or so, and we will know. And at that point, you can make informed decisions rather than speculating. I think for a lot of people, it's part of the joy of FPL.
I mean, I love the strategy side.
Is the what ifs? It's not for me. I like the strategy, but I like the strategy with information rather than doing strategy around what if scenarios. I don't see the point in kind of what if scenarios. But
no, but understanding what ifs can certainly be helpful. I get that completely. Someone that, I mean, if you take me, for example, this week, looking to heavily go against Liverpool, Arsenal, then obviously if those 2 fixtures are off, that was part of my idea, was to bet against them anyway. If they're definitely scoring 0 points, it's even better, isn't it? It would arguably possibly even benefit me in terms of wanting to go to Leicester to have Tottenham-Leicester off at the weekend as well. But I don't want Tottenham not to play at the weekend. I want Tottenham to play. And I think ideally I want all 20 teams to play this weekend. I find it difficult to believe at the moment that all 10 games will happen.
Agreed, for sure.
I think Chelsea-Liverpool particularly that's got to be a major, major doubt.
Yeah. Should we do some of these questions that we had on Twitter then? And we'll try and answer them without being repetitive. And I'll also pick up the more obscure ones as well. Jimmy the Claret, who is the most famous football and non-football person you've both met?
Oh, useless. Mark Savins.
Is that football or non-football? Does that FPL count as football or non-football?
Both. Mark Southerns, there you go. I hope everyone at the fest in New York City over the weekend had a great time.
Yeah, the pictures look like, you make the best of a situation. So, chilling. Rio Ferdinand for me. He's got to be the most famous football guy.
Ledley for me. I've met Gaza, but I don't really remember it.
Yeah, I think if you've had a conversation enough to just, I don't know, chat for a minute.
I'll go for Ledley for me.
Yeah,
non-football. Wow.
Clive Woodward.
I've not got much interest in non-football.
You must have met a non-football.
I can't think of anybody.
Someone from Love Island, James.
I remember meeting
someone who came into the bookies when he used to work down at.
Do you know what just came to me? I told this story before on a Patreon pod about Chirpy, the girl we used to dress up as Chirpy at Tottenham. Even that's football, isn't it?
Yeah,
it's not a celebrity either.
Good. FPL Corf. Have you watched any of the Wrexham documentary on Disney Plus? If so, what did you think? This is the Welcome to Wrexham or whatever, buying Wrexham.
No, I haven't.
And also, no, I haven't.
I haven't watched Arsenal All or Nothing. I haven't watched Wrexham. I haven't watched any of these. I don't have time, unfortunately. No, I haven't seen any of it.
Nah, I haven't either.
Unless I was going to podcast on it. I've not got the time.
Not. I'm sure I will at some point when I'm doing nothing else, but I don't see. Not. Jamie Gaffer's jumped in and said he'll be cancelling his Patreon with us if we said we like it, but
Jamie won't cancel anyway.
Adam says inspired by the Figo documentary recently released.
Ain't seen
Netflix.
that either.
If you could watch a documentary, behind the scenes documentary on any one player / transfer, which would it be? Got to be Gaza, surely.
No, I'm not sure I would want to see all of that, to be honest.
Maybe the decline would be a little bit difficult.
I still think more Diego stuff.
Maradona.
Yeah.
Maradona. Well, you mentioned the word Diego. Atul hasn't got a question, but he just says Diego Costa.
Yes, he's joining Wolves, isn't he?
He is. They've given him a work permit.
Originally, he wasn't getting one. I was just checking to see if he'd had a price yet. I don't think it's official. I'd guess he'd probably be 5.5, as that's what Sasa Kalajic, who obviously joined him, done his ACL.
Yes, the disaster.
Oh, mate.
Disaster.
So, Diego Costa at Wolves sounds like fun. He would, I would say to Wolves fans, careful with your expectations, is all I'd say.
I don't have big expectations.
This won't be the beast player that you saw at Chelsea.
No. He's much further on in his career, and I think he'll play backup, second fiddle a little bit, come off the bench possibly. And pick up a few yellow cards as well. What's the betting on Costa getting more yellow cards than goals between now and the end of the season?
More yellows, yeah.
I'd probably put a $5 on it. Yeah, more yellows than goals between now and the end of the season. Fidoki says, is Griezmann going to be the most rested player at the World Cup? Is Griezmann where he's got the minutes?
Yes. So
and they have to pay an extra whatever. So he's playing 20 minutes a game or some stupidity like this.
He's played I think he started a certain amount of games. It was a clause in the contract. Some Spanish journalists revealed this on Sky a couple of weeks ago. The clause in the contract that once he played over an hour in a certain amount of games, over half hour in a certain amount of games, Atletico Madrid had to give Barcelona 40 million euros. So they're at the limit where the next time Griezmann plays more than half hour, they hope Barcelona 40 million euros.
Up until the end of this season.
I don't know how long it's for.
Okay.
They're bringing Griezmann on after like 61 minutes.
Every single game. Yeah, it's fantastic.
Crazy.
As a player, you got to be a bit...
Yeah,
the fuck you doing, club? You either want me and pay the money or you don't. But it's also mildly amusing.
I mean, there's add-ons and there's add-ons, isn't there? That's one of the more absurd ones that I've heard.
Yes. Having said that, Barcelona last week I saw were given the green light on 800 million euros was the additional spending allowance because of the levers that they pulled up. Draw anyone's attention to the podcast that we put out about them, or obviously our Patreon ones as well. And so that stupidity, I'm all for Atletico Madrid trying to fuck them over because They're stupid. 800 million additional spending allowance for selling the crown jewels.
It's Griezmann we should feel sorry for, isn't it?
Yeah, in this
I'm sure
situation.
Griezmann's earning a very tiny salary.
Chronic FPL. Who do you think is currently the most underrated and overrated player for Spurs and West Ham? So you do Spurs, obviously.
Oh my God. Most
underrated and overrated.
Underrated, I'm going to say Bentancur. There's a number I could have put in there. Ben Davis, Emerson Royal, Højbjerg. I'm going to say Bentancur. I think watching Tottenham without him at West Ham was so obvious last week. So I'm going to say Bentancur.
Is that a one-off game?
Overrated. Son on the recent performances.
It's difficult, isn't it? Because you're looking at 6 months, you're looking at 12 months, you're looking at 18 months, you're looking at 2 years.
Absolutely ridiculous considering he was like in nobody's running for Player of the Year and arguably should have won it last season in many people's eyes. I still think Mo, but the fact he wasn't in nominees or he wasn't in Team of the Year was ridiculous.
Yeah.
And yet I'm probably saying maybe Son at the moment. No, that doesn't feel right. I don't know if we have at the moment. I don't know if we have got someone who's particularly overrated at the moment.
No. I think it's difficult because how do you judge underrated and overrated? Are you talking about performance on the pitch? It's underrated. I mean, people still debate Declan Rice's value, but that's a lot of financial value. Is he worth 100 million or whatever? But then when you see Man United drop 70 on Casemiro, and there's nothing to say he's not a great player, but he's 32 years old, and then you think...
He's not 32, he's 30, I think.
Is he 30? He's older by the tune of 8 years, and then you think, like, Ricey, and he gets 60, 70 grand a week with us on his current contract. This guy's dropping 300 grand a week. You think, well, how can you then say that he's not worth more or what have you when you compare it against other value? He's a bit underrated. But I think if you're talking about on the pitch...
Let's clarify that Declan Rice has been offered a significant pay increase and not accepted it.
Yeah, no. He'll get it at some point, whether it's with us or where. I'd say Fornals, I guess. But Fornals is one of those players where I think he's probably not good enough to go to a big six. He wouldn't get into the team in any of the big six club, but he's probably way better than any of the lower. Like he's a really good player and versatile, and always puts a shift in, and he does produce moments of skill. But I also don't think he's then going to be good enough to break into a bigger team. So he sits at the top of the tree where he is. You get players that get to the point where this is the right level. Like underrated. If you'd asked me 2 weeks ago, I'd have said overrated. I'd have said Antonio. But against you when he came on, the Chelsea game, and then second half he came on in the European game on Thursday, and there was one moment where he shot and he kicked the ball onto his own foot.
Good lad.
Come on, son. But everything else he did, actually, I was like, this is different. This is chalk and cheese. There's two versions of him that you seem to get. 2 weeks ago, I'd have said him, but he has played well in the last 2-3 games, so I can't keep saying Antonio, unfortunately. But we'll see. Right. Paul Goldsmith, this is because you are going with this strategy. Is it time to let Jesus go so we can have two of Isaac, Tony, and Mitro?
Yeah, I mean, look, it's worth saying my idea of going against Arsenal, Liverpool assets is not something I'd necessarily recommend other people to do, despite Liverpool particularly looking a little bit of a mess at the moment. It's the strategy that I've decided to take on from I want to take these players on because if there's a time to do it, I believe it's now. With Jesus, I'm looking at it and going, Brentford away, Tottenham at home, is Leeds away, City at home, Liverpool at home. I might have that order slightly wrong. He could return in all of those games, but is he likely to return big in those games? Probably not. So can I take it on at the moment when there are alternatives like Isak, Mitrovic, Tony, Dominic Solanke's actually not out of my thoughts at the moment, subject to how I decide to place the budget. Ironically, if Gameweek 8 was postponed, I think I'd end up going Solanke, Suj, for 9. Skip Isak, go Solanke, put a bit more money elsewhere in the team. Yeah, honestly, got decent fixtures, Bournemouth. So, yeah, you can probably guess whether you're listening or watching at the moment that I'm looking to punt things very different at the moment. So
They got a manager, Bournemouth.
No. And to be honest, I completely forgot about that. To be honest, they've been better off without anyway. They will obviously appoint something very, very soon, I'm sure. But they might be impacted by them, and Brighton might be looking at similar targets at the moment. So they might have to wait for what Brighton does first, possibly. Yeah, look, it's a risky call. If you're moving off Jesus, Martinelli, Saliba, Trent, Salah, these players, these are good FPL assets. Arguably all underpriced. You could make the case either way on Mo Salah at the moment because of Haaland. You could say is not underpriced, but Trent 7.5 is not justifying it at the moment, but it's still a laughable price for when he's at his best. Same with Robertson.
I saw.
Same with Diaz.
I'm sure. I think it might have been
these players. It's a huge risk. Of course, it is.
Might have been Andy. Let's talk. Put a tweet out that Trent Salah's run rate is to score 240 points so far. That's his run rate if he carries on same as the first 7 game weeks. That's a fair few points, 240 points.
Yeah, but then what's Haaland getting?
Well, Haaland's getting like 600 or something stupid like that. So it's an exception. But Salah's average is between he's scored 300 once and he's been 250s, 260s. So he's not off Salah's standard run rate. Haaland, I think, was on run rate to do about 400 points, which is bonkers mad.
Yeah, look, Mo's on 38 points. It's not disastrous.
No, his run rate is 6 points a game. He'll be well up there at 240. So, but yeah, and there are questions around no Trent, no Salah until game week 12. Are Liverpool in a blip? It says FPL Flair. Does Klopp actually have a problem with the club after 7 years? The Liverpool come back to themselves normal after the break?
I don't really know the answer. I mean, Dan FPL Local is coming on Clash of Correspondents next week with Sam Murray to talk about Liverpool and Brighton together next week, which will be thoroughly interesting. I don't really know the answer. Something doesn't feel right, like his mannerisms after the Napoli game in terms of speaking about kind of running. You look at the Manchester United game back on reflection, United just overwhelmed them with sheer will that night, basically. And they got absolutely torn apart in Naples last week. But I think the idea that perhaps they're not running as much as they normally do, that would be seriously distressing for Liverpool fans to hear, because that's such an important marker of how his teams play, is that they will overwhelm you in terms of their work rate to go with the quality. So if the work rate's not there at the moment, yeah, there has to be alarm bells ringing. But it's still they are good enough to
identify that, though.
It's still an absolute danger to come off these. I mean, go back to Jesus for a second. His last two games for Man City at home to Liverpool, he scored in both. I played, yeah, but it's for Man City. Listen, Arsenal will be strong at the Emirates. It's not to say Jesus can't score in these games. Trent has got balls at Stamford Bridge before, if that game does go ahead at the weekend. Mo Salah scored in that fixture last season. There's nothing to say. Listen, when you come off these players at any time, these are, I was going to say premium, it doesn't feel right, but reliable,
they are consistent performers.
They're top bar level FPL assets. You could come off them when they're away to Manchester City and they could kill you. Right, they're top level. I know the risk. So it's not going to be for everybody. I look at the fixtures for Liverpool and see Chelsea away, Brighton at home, then they go to Arsenal, then they've got Man City at home, and then even West Ham at home in 12. And the Forest game in game week 13 is a Saturday lunchtime after they've played West Ham on the midweek and Manchester City on the Sunday before, and they've got Champions League straight after that as well. So even if you think, come round to Forest, that's good again. It could be heavy rotation with it being a Saturday 12:30 job. So, and then you're into Leeds at home, Tottenham away, Southampton at home. And probably once I come into that last bit, I go, yeah, I need to get something back in for those last couple of home games. I'll do it.
Mm-hmm. I'm very wary of finding a narrative, like looking for stories like Liverpool out of form and whatever else. I think in the past, you kind of want to go away from the crowd or make a decision that find a narrative that helps you feel a little bit different. I'm not going to do it this year, so that's why I'm just kind of sticking with tried and trusted.
Trent and Mo are still in basically half teams.
Yeah.
Right? And Luis Diaz has decent ownership as well.
If they do well, it will still hurt.
The other thing I would add, though, obviously you've got Nunes and Jota back in the equation, which does muddy it from an attacking perspective a little bit more as well.
Talking about differentials a little bit, I don't know how differential they are, but we've got both FPL, Bruno G and Mark asking. Well, Mark's asking about Maddison, despite Leicester's current form. Bruno is asking how to make a decision, I should say, between Bowen and Maddison. Both have historically scored well, but are playing in out of form teams with a big fixture swing coming. I want to punt one of them, but given neither has played too well thus far, it's hard to make a choice. I think Maddison's been all right this season so far. He's still been ticking along. Bowen hasn't so much. I feel like Maddison has, but maybe you're going to tell me I'm wrong.
Maddison is on 22 FPL points. It's
6 games.
2 goals, 1 assist.
So every other game he's picked up a return. Bowen's on no returns.
But you could also say it's 3 blanks in a row, Suj. Although, to be fair, he didn't play at Stamford Bridge in Gameweek 4, so actually it's 2 blanks in a row. So 22 from 5 is not terrible with 4.5-ish per game. But I feel like Maddison, you want to catch his streaks and get off. The fixtures coming up for Leicester: Forest, Bournemouth, Palace at home, Leeds at home, Wolves away after the scheduled Tottenham fixture this week is very interesting. My take on it would be, at the moment, I'm looking at potentially going Bowen and Barnes. Barnes v Maddison, I think, is like it could be an either way, and of course you could fall on the wrong side of it. I wouldn't be comfortable coming to Paqueta yet without more information. He's a super player. I know that. Looks very good. Whether it's going to equate to the returns we want in this game, I don't know yet. At 6 million could be a great price. So if it's price sensitive, you could pair up, say, Maddison and Bowen. At the moment, I'm looking to pair up probably Bowen and Barnes, is my thinking. Wilfried Zaha's the one I definitely want around that value, though.
Yeah.
But not till 10, necessarily. Obviously, don't play this week. Then they've got Chelsea in 9. But I'm looking at potentially going with Wilf and just leaving him as one of the subs this week, subject to how many games are on. I do want Wilfried Zaha. Can't believe I'm saying that, but I am.
I'm not convinced on Bowen yet. Again, we had the European game on Thursday. He came on at half-time. Obviously, we were losing at that. And he scored the penalty, which might mean that he is on penalties because Rice, Paqueta, Antonio, and so on were all on the pitch at the same time. And it was a good penalty straight into the roof of the net. Whether or not that really means we don't win a lot of penalties. But he also had a couple of other opportunities where he's running through one-on-one. And Bowen of old pulls the trigger and gets a shot off. He just doesn't seem to want to get a shot off.
I think I saw he'd only had 1 shot.
Yeah, and he's getting
on
kicked
target this season
quite a bit. I mean, people have identified that he's a danger, so they're going to go after him. And he doesn't seem to have handled it well. Like, he's not getting the shots off. And if he was getting into the opportunities and kind of even at least having a go, I'd feel all right. But he's just still chugging along. Like, at any moment, if he gets a goal or 2 in a game and an assist, then I think he'll snap out of it, and suddenly you've got a good asset there. But
that's what
what
I'd be banking on. Everton, Wolves, Fulham, Southampton, a trip to Liverpool, which actually might be good for someone like Jared Bowen at the moment. Bournemouth, Manchester United away, Palace at home, Leicester at home, up till the World Cup. He's punting on fixtures. There's nothing. I couldn't look at any data and go, I'm going to get Jared Bowen at the moment. Absolutely none.
No.
None. I'm a fixture head. I'm just punting it on the fixtures and hoping that form turns round. To be honest, I did similar with Harry Kane this time last year and it didn't work.
Yep.
So, but yeah, I have every intention to go with Jared Bowen.
On the old Wildcard. FPL Rhiners, if either of us were king, what's the one thing you'd request of people to show their respect if you were to go die, that is?
If it was to die?
Yeah. How would you want people to show their respect?
I wouldn't want people to waste money on my funeral. I had this discussion with my wife the other day.
Yeah.
Eat me. Do whatever you need to do. Don't waste thousands of pounds on my funeral.
Yeah, I think they'll do what they do. It's interesting, the tributes that people have been paying. They made an announcement today, didn't they? Stop bringing cuddly toys and sandwiches was the thing that a lot of people are leaving.
Give that to people who need it.
Yeah, it's difficult.
So what are you taking a sandwich for? Wait. No, seriously.
No. You know the sketch that they did for the Platinum Jubilee with Paddington Bear?
Okay.
That's become quite viral and popular. So people are leaving cuddly Paddingtons with marmalade sandwiches as a tribute alongside flowers and things like that.
There's people
so they're
homeless
collecting loads of
all
marmalade
over the
sandwiches.
city. Give it to them.
Yeah.
Donate. Don't do that. Donate bloody food to food banks and stuff. Seriously.
I'm with you. My wife asked me at the weekend,
Mind
it's like 5 or 6 weeks. I don't know until my birthday. She's like, what do you want to do for your birthday? I'm like, at this age, like
Stop
nothing.
Counting,
nothing. Like Pizza Express will do the job. Do you know what I mean? I don't want to go anywhere or do anything.
It's my wife's 40th. We play Eintracht
When?
Frankfurt.
Soon?
Yeah, we play Eintracht Frankfurt next month. We play Eintracht Frankfurt away the night before. I'm not going. I want to do something. I said, fucking Wednesday, love. Like, what do you really want to do? We're going to go out raving. We're going to take Harry with us? No.
Leave Harry and me.
Yeah?
Yeah, go on.
On a Wednesday night?
On a Wednesday night, go uptown, raving. You'll probably take her to Frankfurt. We're going away, love. Yes, FPL telling if your team is a hit, if your team is a maximum of 2 hits away from the wildcard draft that you want, is it better to pull it now or wait until game week 12 to use your wildcard? The reason I asked that question is a couple other people have said that they were planning game week 8, 9 wildcards. This has thrown a spanner in the works, and actually with a few frees, they can get to the team they want now anyway. And the ultimate is, when's the next best time to use the wild card? I actually have no idea when I'm going to use my wild card. Haven't even given it any thought, and I probably should at some point.
So one option is to wait till game week 13, where Liverpool come into better fixtures again, kind of Nottingham Forest away. Say Arsenal come into Southampton away and Forest at home on the other side of their difficult patch. City come into a decent 4 fixtures. Palace have a good run. Everton, I actually have top of my FDR for the final 4 fixtures before the World Cup. I mean, that's not for me, personally. If you want to look at that, Suj, last 4 fixtures before the World Cup, it doesn't appeal to me, but it will do to others. And I think to answer the question, if you're a couple of hits away from getting to the team that you know you want, crack on and do it. Subject to obviously what's on this week, wait a week, whatever. But just consider that the team you want is that the team that you want when you get to 12, 13. It might be that you get into the team you want, and then is that different for the future weeks, etc., etc.? We do that, I think. This is the team I want to get to. But by the time we get to it, actually, we want something different again. So just consider that. But I think for a lot of people, I know a few of our patrons have certainly said, no, I want to wait till 13 now and stuff. That's absolutely fine. But that doesn't appeal to me, personally.
No. I know this season so far, I've been blessed with good luck in that I've had no injuries, no major injuries or fires to put out. Like you had a situation where you had 2, 3, 4 players at one point where you wanted to make take a hit. Was it game week 3?
No, I feel like I've been pretty lucky this year.
Fairly, with suspensions, rotation and injuries. I've had nothing.
Just not Trent Robertson 1 pointers at Everton and stuff, whatever.
So it's coming, is what my point is. So at some point, there's going to be a game week in the next few where I've got 3 or 4 fires. That will mean that I will pull the trigger on the wild card at the moment. And at the moment, it hasn't come.
Ever, play it your way is fairly obvious and standard, but be very careful what you hear noises, because a lot of people are very passionate who believe in there's a right way to do things at the moment. What's right for me or what's right for Suj might not be right for you. Like, honestly, I've seen it over this weekend about people can't wild card now and stuff. You absolutely can if it's the right thing to do for your team as it is for me. That doesn't mean it's right for others. So it comes back to where you're at. I want to take on the template over these next 4 game weeks or so. And I know the risk, right? I'm at 1.9 million. I'm not pulling up any trees, but it's not a disastrous position to be. It's only 6 game weeks gone. I well know that I can take this path now, and there's as much chance of me dropping to 4 million or so than there is getting up to inside the top 500k or whatever. I know that. I know the risk. If it goes wrong, I'm in massive trouble. So do you want to take that chance, for example? It'll be different for everybody.
I think you're going to live a little. So, yes.
Sod it. It's interesting as well that it's only a couple of weeks ago, this is boring, I don't know what transfer to make. And yet now it's, give me another free hit. And I said we'd get to this period and it will start moving, and this is it. This is a time where And again, because of unlimited, what do you think is going to happen when we get to game week 16? Or game week 17, sorry, it was after unlimited. We're going to fucking have the same team again. I know this from historically playing Sky, that when you have that period and you give everybody the wild card at the same time, everybody's going to land on a similar team.
Yep.
So if you want to break
everyone
off
on Twitter.
If you want to true. If you want to break off of it, but a lot of people still even not on Twitter, right?
Yeah, look
There's
at
too many good
team
managers
selected by
around.
and stuff, yeah.
Too much good content out there that people are going to land in a similar place. My take is, if you want to break away, it's now. So that's why I'm doing it now.
Good.
And when I'm 4 million in a couple of weeks, the only person I blames myself. It won't be the weather or COVID or unfortunate losses to life. This is my decision and my decision only.
James, do you want to tell the listeners what they have to look forward to for the rest of this week?
It completely depends on the fixture.
It does as well.
Roughly. Tomorrow, it's been much asked for. We are going to be having a special on Chelsea with Gary Mantle, Phantom Mantle, our Chelsea correspondent, to talk over, obviously, the sacking of Thomas Tuchel and the appointment of Graham Potter. Wednesday will be Sky Fantasy Football. Thursday's clash of the correspondents is Nottingham Forest versus Fulham with Mark Southerns and Dara Curran. It's one of, hopefully, the games I'm more confident of having this week. Friday is unconfirmed. It might be me running through my wild card. It might be something completely different depending on where we're at with fixtures. It might be free hit drafts. There'll be something FPL related for you on Friday. Our Patreon podcast this week from Intermediate Tier, our Q&A today, Champions League Fantasy Preview tomorrow, Wednesday's Tottenham, Thursday's a quiz, Friday, I hope, will be our Game Week 8 differential show preview.
Lovely jubbly. Listeners, wherever you're listening to the podcast or if you are watching on YouTube, you know what to do. Subscribe, hit the notification bell, like the video, all that kind of jazz, and you'll get notified when the next batch of content goes out for us. If you want to support the show, put some pennies in to help run the electricity, because that's getting expensive, James. You know, all these lights that Nico likes to put on. You can head over to patreon.com/Planet FPL from as little as £3.
We're doing it in the dark come November,
Soon
won't
we will be. We'd love to have you over there to show your support. We have a Slack community with hundreds of engaged fantasy managers, not just FPL, but Sky and other games, UEFA, Gaffer, UEFA Champions League Fantasy, and so on and so on. So you can come and join the community over there. It's a really nice, supportive place that you can chat to other fantasy managers. And on top of that, we have prize leagues and other games that we run as well. James has got a planner spreadsheet that's incredibly useful to help you with your fixtures and all that kind of stuff.
It's worth saying Game Week 8's the cut-off for the season-long ones, by the way.
Game Week 8.
Which is what we're meant to be coming to in terms of the entry for the season-long cash
codes
leagues.
to enter those. And of course, we do additional content. So do head over to patreon.com/Planet FPL if you want to support the show. Other than that, though, stay safe and keep chill. See you soon. Ciao for now.
Thanks, everyone. Be nice to each other. Play it your way. Cue music, please, man, child.